Hi, my name is Candace, founder of Sufficient Grace Social Services, where our mission is to create awareness for the prevention of child molestation, child sexual abuse, and neglect, to help children to gain confidence and to find their voice, and also to help find healing from child sexual abuse and other childhood traumas through Christ. Today, I want to continue our conversation on my book of Becoming Me. Um, I was on chapter 7, my husband. Oh, okay. And um, I know I've taken some time off. I do that from time to time. But last week I was a little bit sick, and then afterwards I went through like kind of like a mini depressive state that happens with me like fairly often actually. So, sometimes I just need a little time to just do nothing because I have a lot going on in my life right now. So, like, sometimes I just need to take a break. But anyway, um, I don't know where I left off. Let's see now. Oh, I guess I left off at the beginning of this page. So, last time we were talking, we weren't married yet. Um, Yeah, and I just found out that he had cheated on me, or he was cheating with me. I'm really not sure about which one it was. But okay, so uh yeah. I'm just gonna read. I got like 3 pages left in this, so we'll just continue it on. Chapter 7, which is entitled My Husband, which is now my ex-husband. But okay. So we got our marriage license and started telling family that we were going to get married. I wanted to get married at my church, but my aunt said that we should get married at her house. The aunt who is married to my abuser. Back after, I don't know why I said back. After I decided not to go around them anymore after a while. Oh, okay. My aunt and I reconnected. My daughter and I started hanging out with her more and more. Eventually, my daughter and I started going over their house every Sunday and hanging out with my aunt. The wedding took place July 10th, 2010. I was 27 at the time. I was given away by my abuser. Gosh. Because my dad refused to come to the wedding. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Okay. So earlier that day, I was not even sure that my husband was even going to make it because it took him so long to get there. Oh. When I tell you that, you know, it was like a shotgun wedding with minus the pregnancy. My ex-husband now really didn't want to get married. Um, I don't know. I guess he loved me, but he had never been married. He's quite a bit older than me, and he just I don't know. He like I said, he sold me a dream that was basically a lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was a lie. He never wanted to marry me. He really had no intentions on marrying me. I was assuming that he wasn't, and I like literally called his bluff, like, and he did it, and I was like, oh, okay, so we're going through with this, all right, and that's how we got married. So anyway, I know he felt I pressured him into marrying me, and he never let me forget about it. Never, ever, ever. The evening after the wedding. Oh my gosh, my spelling in this is terrible. The first night together as husband and wife, he borrowed my car because he said that his boss from his job, quotations, he was working at the time, needed him to come and help out with something. It was only supposed to take an hour or so. I remember this night. That night after the wedding, I had some of my sister's children with me, the triplets, a couple of the triplets, and I told him to come right back so I could drop them off at home. He said, okay. Well, he ended up staying out all night and did not come back until the next afternoon. I was mad, but more so of myself. I was crazy to think that anything would change just because of a little piece of paper. And that, I have to admit, I did. I thought that a lot would change because we were married now. And in my mind, I thought it was going to be like a switch, like, like just a whole 180, you know? And in my mind, okay, we're married now. Everything in the past is in the past, and we're going to start fresh and we're going to be husband and wife. And that was my mentality. But his was like, it was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. By the time we got married and moved in together, my husband still continued to use me for everything I had. I worked and took care of my daughter, him, and all the household bills. During this time, I still tried to have a relationship with God. I still prayed, but was more so to ask God for what I needed. Before I was married, I even prayed several times that the Lord would have him to marry me. I did. Oh, I would ask God, oh, can he please just marry me, please? But at the time, and I realized this, it's because we were involved sexually, and I felt like it was wrong, and I felt like if we were married, it would make it okay. I mean, a lot of people get married for that reason. I'm not going to say I'm the only one. So there you have it. If it wasn't for that, half the people married today probably wouldn't be married. I mean, they love each other, but like people get married for reasons. They don't just get married. Love, money, companionship, loneliness, a lot of reasons why people get married. So, although the Lord told me many times he was not the man for me, he showed me many times who he really was, I still wanted to marry him, and eventually God allowed it to happen. Yeah, and remember last week I told you that, man, now that we're friends again, I wanted us to get remarried. I'm like, why not? We're getting along and everything. And the Lord's like, I told you in the first place, this is not the guy for you. Now you want to marry him again? Like, I'm like, oh, okay. Right. I wonder what God had waited. Wait, I wonder what God had waiting for me if I had just listened to him. Oh, okay. I truly feel that God allowed me to marry him to draw me closer to him because I never prayed so much or seek God so much until after I was married to him. Like I said, throughout most of our marriage, I was taking care of the household. But if ever there was a time that he was working, all of his money was for him. I accepted all of this just to keep him around. During our marriage, we moved around a lot, and many times we even lived apart because I was tired of carrying all the weight on my own. There was many times where his yelling, cursing, and treating me and my daughter bad would get to me, and we would break up for a while, but I would always beg for him to get back with me. I realize now that I was teaching him how to treat me. As long as we were together, he might have told me that he loved me maybe twice, even counting while we were married. Yeah, he know. You know what? And it's so funny now that we're not together. He's told me he loved me plenty of times, but when we were together for almost 10 years, nope, not at all. He told me he did not like to say he loved me because he did not want me to get a big head. Although he told his family, mother, father, sisters, nieces, cousins, etc., I love you every time he spoke to them. A couple of times really stands out in my head about how he treated me when we were living apart. I was living with my dad in Chicago, and he was living with his dad and stepmom in the south suburbs about 30 minutes away. I had not seen my husband for a while, so I wanted to see him, and we had been getting along, so I did not think it was a problem to come see him. I even called before I came, and he said it was fine for me to come over. When I got there, for whatever reason, he would not answer the door, and he sent a child, one of his stepmom's grandkids, to the door to dismiss me. Oh, I remember this day. Oh, the pain. Oh my gosh. Like, I can still feel the pain of the rejection. You send like a 3 or 4 year old to the door. It's like, no, he told you to go home. Like, that really happened. Okay, so after some convincing, they let me in, and he still would not come out of his room to see me. He finally came out and told me to leave because I was causing a scene. Another time, while he was still staying with his parents, his older brother had come to town for an extended stay. He was having such a great time with his brother around, he almost completely stopped talking to me. Oh, once again, I had come over to speak to him because every time I would call him, he would hang up on me. When I got there, I called him and I thought he'd answered the phone, and he did, but instead of talking to me, he put the phone down, and I just heard him, his dad, and his brother talking about me and laughing. It was painful to hear, but I just hung up and called him back, but he did not answer. I eventually just went home back to my dad's house. And okay. So there were so many times he would just answer the phone and put it down just to let me listen to the horrible things that him and his family said about me when I was not around. Through all of that, I stayed with him. And I was just about to say something to that. Because my ex husband did that a lot of times to me. Like, I could, one, two, three. I can think of 4 times. Twice he did that with his stepmom. Um, just like pocket down me. And, but just so happens when you're talking about me, right? You pocket down me. And so, he did it while we were dating, and he did it a couple of times while we were married. And it was so rude and disrespectful. Like, that particular time when he did that with his dad and his brother and his and him, you know, I had come all the way out there to talk to him, and you know, I felt so defeated. Like, when he did that, it hurt, like, really really bad. Like, it really hurt. But I, it was like the emotional abuse I went through in that relationship was terrible. It was so hard. It was so hard. And I would never put it past a person to say emotional abuse is not as bad as physical abuse, because emotional abuse, verbal abuse, I mean, it's the scars of physical abuse. I mean, physical abuse is hard and it's bad and it's wrong, but those scars heal. The bruises and everything heals. Emotional wounds and psychological wounds take years to heal. They take years to heal. And it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. Yesterday maybe. I think it was yesterday. I wanted so bad to be with him, and I wanted so bad for him to approve of me and to like me and to want me. And it took me back to my childhood and how I was never good enough for my mom. And it was like I wanted so much for her to love me and to accept me and to treat me like she wanted me around and just to love me, that I would do anything. And she she did the same thing to me. She would, one time, I don't know if I talked about this. It might have been a while ago. It was Thanksgiving or Christmas, and we were at my aunt's house, and I had to be about 5 or 6, and I was already being molested at that time. So when I was younger, I was chunky because I was depressed, and I was playing with my cousins or doing something. I was running past my aunt, and my mom was standing in the kitchen, and she grabbed me and she pulled up my shirt. She started hitting my stomach. Look at this. She's gonna have to hold that stomach in. And I remember thinking to myself, like, for one thing, I was humiliated because they both started laughing and talking about how fat I was. And I felt bad. And I was like, and I couldn't figure out why my mom would do that to me, would just like make fun of me in front of people that I saw twice a year, and it's like, I don't really even know them. This is your family, but, I don't really feel close to them like I'm actually a part of their family, other than the fact that I see them on Christmas and Thanksgiving, and maybe birthdays every once in a while. And so, like, that desperate need for her to like me and just to be okay in her eyes. I never felt approval from her. And it was like it transferred over to my ex-husband. Like, I just needed his approval. I needed him to love me. I needed him to treat me all right, for me to know that I was okay. And I never got it. I never got it from her. I never got it from him. It was like I never got it. And the fact that I didn't get it from my mom made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And that's what put me in the depressive state, because if I was stronger in myself, I wouldn't have took all of that stuff from my ex-husband. You know, I didn't have the foundation of being loved and cared for as a child. So I looked for this approval in people over and over and over again. And it just stuck with him. Just so happened, because there was a lot of guys before him, but it stuck with him. And it was just this cycle of, you're not good enough for me. You're not good enough for me. I can do whatever I want to you. I can say whatever I want to you. You're not going to leave me. You're not going to, because you don't even see the worth in yourself. So why should I? And it put me in such a dark place that it took me back to my childhood, where I was so incredibly depressed, and I had anxiety. And usually anxiety and depression sometimes goes hand in hand, but I had both. I was days where I was sit and could do nothing, and then I was afraid of everything. I would have panic attacks. I couldn't be in a car. I And all of this started coming back to me from my childhood when I was married to my ex-husband. It was bad. It was bad. It was like I was reliving my childhood nightmare in a marriage that I felt like I was stuck in because I made this lifelong commitment to somebody and I don't believe in divorce. So, yeah. All right. So, there were so many times. Okay. I already read that part. One time when we did break it off was when we were living in Chicago in an apartment not too far from where I grew up. Once again, I was tired of him yelling at me and cursing my daughter and I out. He had recently, oh gosh, backed me into a corner of the kitchen and spit in my face. I was just tired of the back and forth. He would leave and be gone for hours and come back home 2 and 3 in the morning with no explanation. And if I asked any questions, it would become an instant fight. Yeah. So I told him that particular day that I was tired of the way he was treating us. And if he could not treat us any better, then he had to leave. So he left. He left. It At first it hurt that he would choose to leave over treating us better, and I wanted him to come back, but he would not. While he was gone, I had a total breakdown. After all we had been through, he was willing to just walk away. He was telling everyone that I had kicked him out. I started having major anxiety attacks, worse than I ever had before. And I would cry day and night. I started to be afraid of everything, like driving and even being home alone. I really truly thought I had lost my mind. I did not know what to do, so I prayed. I started to lean on God like I never had before, and He started to give me peace about the situation. While he was still living out of the home, we started talking again, and he told me he had been living with his nephew. He still did not want to come back, but by now I was getting used to him being gone. A couple of weeks later, he called me from the hospital and told me he had had a stroke. I was worried about I was worried, but the Lord gave me peace about the situation. I went to see him in the hospital and he was doing okay. I started going with him to his doctor's appointments and helping him with things like I used to, and we were getting along, so I decided that I would like him to come home, although he was still not ready. Days later, he called me and told me he was ready to come home, but there was something that he had to tell me first. He proceeded to tell me how he had not been living with his nephew at all. That the time, all the time for 2 or 3 months, but in fact, he was staying with another woman. The same woman he had cheated on me with, or I was cheating on her with, I don't know. Um, that same woman that we was cheating on each other with, or while we were still dating. I don't know. I'm still confused about that situation. Was I the other woman or was she? I have no clue. Anyway, we had been married for about 4 years at this point, and all that time he was still in contact with that same woman. To say the least, I was mad, but I let him come home anyway. But there was a catch. I had to go to her house and get all of his belongings and bring him home. As embarrassed as I was, I went there and picked him up and to get all of his stuff on my birthday. I think I was turning 31. Happy birthday to me. When I got there, he started putting his things in a car, and I saw his girlfriend coming out over to the car. Then he stopped her and they briefly spoke, and then she went back inside. She never did come to the car. He finished packing his things in the car and we left and went home. We continued life as usual, as nothing really changed. At that time I did not think that divorce was an option, so I thought if he wanted to come back home, I had to take him back. But admittedly something in my mind had changed. I stopped caring about the marriage and being with him anymore. After found out that he had been living with her, I did not want him anymore. In my heart, I was done. All right, so that's the end of chapter 7. Uh, but I still love my ex-husband. Admittedly, I still love him. And we have our issues. We're not together now, but we have our issues. But, I'm the type of person, I don't give up on anybody. I just don't. I am the forever optimist, you know? And so, I don't give up on anybody. I always have hope for everybody, except for myself, which I'm changing that. I'm starting to have hope for myself. But as always, I want to say, if you are a child, if you know of a child, if you are a child, don't watch this, who has been sexually abused or is currently being sexually abused or any type of abuse, I urge you to please call 911 or your local law enforcement agency. I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. Or 1-800 for a child, which is the National Child Abuse Hotline. And if you are an adult who has been sexually abused or any type of abuse, or if you're currently being abused, I urge you to talk to someone about it and get it out there and get the help that you need. And once again, I thank you all for taking a little time to read this crazy story of my life with me. And as always, be blessed.